Dramm has a range of water breaker options. 70 plus years ago, Dramm developed the water breaker. That's the foundation of the company. The purpose of the water breaker was to simulate rain as close as possible. And by that we mean we want to simulate raindrops, and we want to include an amount of dissolved oxygen delivered to the soil as we're watering. We have a family of water breakers, what we call the 1000 series. The 1000 series, there's actually a little over 1,000 holes. There's an orange 1000 water breaker. This is a wide pattern water breaker that generates a very soft rain-like shower that is really good for young seedlings, young transplants, and areas where we want to restrict the water. The green water breaker is the opposite of that. It's a much narrower pattern. Again, it generates a very soft water pattern. Again, getting that dissolved oxygen blended in. It is a great tool for very targeted watering, edge watering, distance watering, and you really have to try one out to see if it fits what you want to do. The red water breaker, which is the original water breaker, this is more or less the grandfather of the 1000 series. It's basically a medium flow or medium width water breaker. Again, very soft, and again generating enough dissolved oxygen in water for the soil. The next water breaker would be the yellow water breaker. It is very close to the orange water breaker, being that it has a wide pattern, but it does have a slightly lower water output. And the advantage to that is if we're watering plants like flats of impatiens or plants of bedding plants, the best growth regulator is to actually restrict watering. This really helps ensure that the water is going to be restricted and applied evenly. One of the things that you can do with this water breaker is you can really tone the shutoff valve back. It can work quite well with a medium to low flow water breaker, but you can really tone it back without creating that dribble that we growers don't like. It's a really, really good tool. The 400 water breaker comes in both the ABS plastic and the aluminum. The aluminum is the original founding water breaker from the Dramm company. This is the oldest water breaker in the family. This puts out a medium to higher flow rate of water. Again, you could throttle it with your shutoff. We do recommend a high flow shutoff valve to be used with this water breaker. The difference between the plastic and the aluminum is there is a slight difference in pattern. The plastic, the disc is much flatter and is more direct, where the aluminum water breaker has a little bit of a bubble in the disc, meaning that the water pattern is going to shoot a little bit wide. Next, water breakers, which have the same hole size, it's the same pattern, but this is called the 170 AL, which is the aluminum, and the 170 PL. It's a miniature version of the 400. This is really good on hanging basket wands and great for watering 6-inch pots, 8-inch pots, and window boxes, things like that, where we don't really want to get the foliage too wet. Really good. A lot of them have been used historically also on some of the automatic watering systems in tools out in the market like the Echo. The next series of water breakers are what we call the 480. We have a 480 PL and a 480, it's the 480 PL and the 480 AL. A relative to the 1000 series water breaker, just a much smaller version. These water breakers are really good for containers or flats that have low soil volumes. Again, we could really tone the water back with the water breaker. doesn't knock seedlings down. It's really soft, really great too, again, for edge watering on benches and whatnot. Again, like the aluminum series, or like the 400 series, there is the aluminum and the plastic. The difference is the plastic has a narrower pattern, where the aluminum has a little bit of a wider pattern. So there are growers that will like one over the other. That's why Dramm offers both. Another water breaker, very simple one, used on for seedlings. It's basically a higher volume manual mist water system for seed trays like lettuce, anything that has a really, really fine seed that we don't want to wash the seeds out of the tray. Great for smaller growers that have, they plant a tray of one variety, a tray of the other, another variety, not necessarily for high volume growers. The newest water breaker, which is an absolutely wonderful tool, and it takes aeration to a new level, is the new Screen Air. We call this the 350. It is made of also an ABS fiber type plastic. It's a series of screens that basically help discharge the water like a kitchen faucet. It's very aerated. There are actually 4 portholes in the top of the water breaker that help inject additional air or additional oxygen into the water. It does require a high volume shut-off valve because it is considered a high volume water breaker. This water breaker is really good for growers who hand water nursery stock, where you're using a little bit more of a pine bark or a heavier topsoil, where we're not using any wetting agents. It really helps the soil absorb the water. It's almost like the water is being absorbed into, or the water is being absorbed into the soil in a sponge-like fashion. This is also a wonderful tool for growers who grow large containers, large patio planters, even used on large poinsettia planters in the fall. You have to get one. I can't say enough good things about this water breaker. It's a wonderful tool. Don't be fooled by the small screen. This is not to be used on seedlings or young seeds. It is high volume. It will wash that category of plant material right out of the tray. This is great for large containers, patio planters, and nursery stock. When choosing a water breaker, one of the other considerations we have to consider is the on-off water flow or shut-off valve. Dramm has 5 basic versions. The one version is the brass 300C, which is a high flow valve. The aluminum valve, which is called the 300AL, which is also a high flow valve, and the 74C, which is a polyfilled fiber, which is also a high flow valve. Medium to low flow valves are the ABS plastic 35C, as well as the touch and flow 65C. I'm going to water some 12-inch geranium baskets. The baskets are, what I would consider midway growth. I do not want to wet the foliage because we've got some very cool nights. The humidity in the greenhouse is a little high. So I'm going to use a 400 water breaker and the 74C shut-off. And this combined with a 36-inch wand for me is a great way to water my 12-inch geraniums. But I want to come in on the side so I do not have to get the foliage wet. And then in my mind I'm counting 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And that's giving me my 2 liters or half a gallon of water that I want going into each one of these geranium baskets. The next task that I'm going to do is I'm going to water these patio planters. The soil in these patio planters is somewhat dry. I'm concerned a little bit about the water seeping outside the pond. So the tool that I'm choosing is the 350 PL, the new screen air with the special air injection ports on the top. The water really comes out of this breaker like a faucet, as you can see here, but it's a real good tool to flood. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to water the pots, and I'm really flooding the pots well. And again, in my mind, I'm counting based on the I've calibrated myself on the counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that should be sufficient water for these patio pots. Okay, now I'm going to water some 6-inch annuals on a bench. The 6-inch pots are in shuttle trays. The water breaker that I choose for this task is the 170 PL. The reason I choose this water breaker is the narrow pattern and the ability to get moisture into the soil or water into the soil without completely wetting the plant. With the shutoff valve, we throttle the position that we want to use, and then from here we go into each pot, and again I'm counting in my mind, knowing what volume of water is going into each individual pot. Notice how I am not lifting the wand, I'm kind of walking backwards with it. We want to make sure that the water breaker stays consistent height above the pot. What we do not want to do, and I'm going to abuse my plants here right now, is we do not want to see people watering their plants by turning the water breaker and the watering wand into a salt shaker. We do not want to see this. This is a terrible way to water, and this is a good way to create disease. Okay, I'm going to water some 6-inch succulent baskets. What I like to do with succulents is I like to really soak them, and then we let them completely dry down. The water pattern and softness of the green 1000 PL, which is the narrow pattern water breaker, is a wonderful tool for this type of job, along again with edge watering, but I'm going to use it on these 6-inch baskets. And as you can see, I can throttle my shutoff valve and get the water right into that basket, and I'm flooding it. 6-inch basket is smaller, but I'm going to completely soak it. What I'm going to water next is some direct stuck cuttings. It's a variety of plant that I want to be very careful with the quantity of water that I put into them. So for that task, I've chosen the 1000 PL orange. 1000 PL orange has a much wider pattern, but yet a very soft, well oxygenated water pattern. I'm going to basically set my throttle with the shutoff valve. It's not completely on, but now I'm just going to gently drain the water onto the plants. All I want to do here is get the surface of the soil wet, maybe go down ½ inch, no further. Notice again, I'm not lifting the wand. I'm trying to keep the wand and the water breaker at a stationary height. This is the best way to simulate rain. Okay, I'm going to water next some trays of rooted liners in a 3.5-inch pot. The water breaker that I chose for this is the yellow 750. This has a slightly higher output than the 1000. It's very nice. Again, I can throttle with the valve the exact width of the tray and calibrate myself to walk evenly and take the wand over top of the trays evenly, giving them all even water. So I'm covering a tray that is 20 inches by 18 inches, and I'm doing a whole tray at a time. Again, notice how the water breaker is staying at the same height. Depending on the time of the year, it may be necessary to do a little extra edge watering. But again, a nice, soft, gentle flow, not knocking the soil out of the pot, and nicely covering the plant and the pot. These are succulents that I'm watering, so they are not as critical with regards to getting the foliage wet. This is a great tool for using on shade impatiens and any flats of plants, again where we want to limit the amount of water and get a gentle flow. I'm using it as a little bit of a higher flow on a specific pot size.